live, Facebook style. I wanted to do this for a while. Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Monster truck voice. It is Sunday, June 2nd, 2019. Where is the thing that tells me how many, who's watching? How do I do that? Quiet mode's turned on. Quiet mode's turned off. I don't know, usually it pops up at the bottom. It doesn't matter. Sunday, July 2nd. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to Facebook Live. My name's Iron Tamer Dave Whitley, and today on Facebook Live, I'm going to answer some questions that are specific. Actually, it's one specific question that I got. So, what I want to do right now is, who's here? Sean says I'm here. Hey Sean, what's up? Thanks for coming by. Who else? Chris. All right, awesome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Kind of threw me off my game a little bit. We'll start over again. Welcome to Facebook Live. My name is Iron Tamer Dave Whitley. And today, I'm going to answer a specific question that someone sent me asking about how to get started doing bending, specifically bending nails, short bending. So what I want to do today is do a quick little overview of how that works. And I'm going to talk about the three different popular styles. There's more than three styles, but there's three that are kind of the main styles that people do. What you need to do to get started, how to get started, and just a little overview of the technique. It's not going to be exhaustive and comprehensive, but you know, it will be enough that if you don't know what I'm talking about, that if you don't know how to do it, then you'll be able to figure it out. And if you do know, then it might be a refresher for you. So Chris says, is card tearing next? Yeah, we might do something on ripping cards. I'm going to start out with a little bit of chalk, and my chalk comes from these guys, Viking Performance. Fantastic chalk. I'm going to put some on my hands. Haven't actually done anything yet, so I'm completely cold starting this up because I was doing things with my boy a minute ago. But here we are, a little bit of chalk. Normally I don't, or not normally, but most of the time I don't chalk up before I start doing anything, but it's hot and humid and I'm outdoors. So first thing I want to talk about is wraps. There are multiple different kinds of wraps that you can get, and there are multiple places that you can get them. Very commonly seen among steel benders are these. This is an Iron Mind pad. You'll see it abbreviated IMP. It comes from Iron Mind Enterprises. Website is ironmind.com. It's made of Cordura. It's very, very tough. Very, very tough, puncture-resistant material. It will eventually start to shred a little bit like this one did. But it's a very tough material, very good to protect you against punctures, the ends of the steel of the nails going into your hand, any of that kind of stuff. It does not afford you a lot in terms of padding though. And because of that, I usually don't recommend that people start out with these. This is something that I tend to let people grow into. The caveat on that is if you're going to do the red nail certification for Iron Mind, then you must use these pads, but that's a whole different story for another time. So those are very common, very easy to get. And then I also have some leather here. It is smooth on one side and rough on the other. I use this kind of stuff. Actually, this pair is the only pair that I really use that is smooth on one side. And honestly, I use them because they stay out here in the shed. I don't ever take these back inside, and if I come out here and decide I'm going to bend something, then I'll just grab these most of the time and use it. The other stuff that I use is rough on both sides, like suede on both sides. In this particular pair that I have right here, you can see I've got an extra piece of older, more worn out, big hole in it leather glued on with Gorilla Glue. The reason I do that is you see this hole here, you'll wear a hole in your leather very, very quickly if you're not careful, or even if you are careful. That's the nature of the game. So these wraps feel good and they're seasoned. I've got another pair around here somewhere. Ah, yes. These are not seasoned. These are still relatively new. You can see how stiff these are. If I bend them into a position, they tend to like stay in that position and have that bit of stiffness and springiness to them. If I do that with this guy, if I bend it in position, it just kind of flops around, right? So these are floppier, more worn out, broken in. And so I like the feel of these. This is something that I got from Dennis Rogers. I like the feel of these that are worn in and broken in, but I don't want them to wear out too quickly like this. So I take about a third of the length from an older pair, cut them off and glue it in there. And that way when this wears out, I can rip it off, take another piece of an older pair that's partially worn out, glue it on, and the wear and tear happens to the replaceable piece instead of putting a hole through my seasoned wraps that I like. I use these in shows quite a bit because they're very consistent and they feel good. Where to get leather? People ask me that. You can do like I used to do, and you can go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's or any craft store like that and find leather and cut it out yourself. Or Fat Bastard Barbell Company. I haven't bought anything from them for a while, but they used to sell wraps specifically designed or specifically made for bending, and you can buy steel there too. So they are my go-to place for things related to short bending. If you need steel that is very, very easy or very, very difficult or anywhere in between with gradual little jumps, they've got a little bit of everything there. So that's where to go for those things. So I'm thinking, I got wraps. Am I done talking about wraps? And yes, I believe that I am. I'm going to pull out 3 60-penny nails. These did not come from Fat Bastard. I got these from Amazon. And the caveat here is that all 60-penny nails are not created equal. I bought several boxes of these a few years ago, and they've lasted. I think I have about a box and a half left. So these are nails that I use in shows, that I use for warming up for heavier stuff, harder stuff. And I'm going to use these 3 nails today, and I'm going to demonstrate the 3 different styles of bending that I want to talk about. First, I'm going to take my wrap, and is Fat Bastard still in business? As far as I know, they are, Chris. You might ask Andrew if you're friends with him. I haven't heard anything that they're not, so as far as I know, they still are. What I'm going to do, the way I like to wrap, and this is my way of doing this, the way that I like to do it. Usually, I don't wrap them super, super tight unless I'm going for something that is a very, very hard, very heavy piece. So I would take something like a weight like this kettlebell and lay it down like this. This is for doing something that's very, very difficult. And then now I can pull against that, tighten it up really tight, and roll it. Sean says he's been busy with the Legends contest. I'm assuming you're talking about Andrew and Fat Bastard. Yeah, Andrew runs Fat Bastard as a side thing. It's not his full-time job, so he does it because he loves it. Legends being a grip contest, if I'm correct. I am not a grip sport guy. So anyway, I pull back and roll forward and pull back and roll forward, and then I have wrapped one end of the nail that way. That is the way I'll do it if I'm doing something particularly difficult. I might put rubber bands around it and then double wrap it for more padding. Again, not what I'm talking about today. This is more of an overview. The way I typically wrap nails, though, because when I'm doing a show, I do not want to talk and then be like, I'm going to go wrap this nail, and I'll go set something up and wrap it, and it takes 30 seconds or a minute, minute and a half, whatever. That messes with the rhythm of the show. So the way that I really like to do it, and I'll do this, I'm talking to you right now to demonstrate it, is I'll take the nail and I'll talk a little bit about the nail. Sean says I am correct. He is also involved in King Kong Grip too. So Sean's talking about Andrew from Fat Bastard being involved in organizing and promoting grip sport contests, and so he's super busy between that and running Fat Bastard and his regular life outside of those things. So as an example of how I would wrap a nail in a show, I'll take the nail and I'll tell you a little bit about the nail. It's 6 inches long. It's a 1/4 inch in diameter. It's called a 60 penny nail. It was sort of a staple feat for the old-time strongmen back in the vaudeville era. And if you couldn't do a 60 penny nail, then you weren't really taken seriously as strongman. And you'll notice that what I'm doing while I'm saying those things is I'm wrapping the nail. This way there's no break in the action. There's me talking, I'm wrapping the nail. And now that I'm ready to bend the nail, I'm also done with that little bit of spiel where I'm talking. So that's how I typically wrap nails, even in practice, because that's how I want it to be automatic when I'm in a show, so that I can concentrate on speaking and concentrate on reaching the audience members and making eye contact and being effective in the way that I talk, not having to spend a lot of time wrapping the nail up. So one other important point, if you notice when I wrap this, I'm going to start over here. I have the nail and I have the wrap between myself and the nail, and I roll that way to wrap it up. When I go to the other side, I will put the nail between me and the wrap and roll it in the opposite direction. The reason I do that is now I've got it wrapped, both sides going in the same direction. Hopefully that makes sense what I said. So the first technique for bending that I want to show is what's called double overhand. This is the most common. This is what I usually recommend beginners to start out with if they're physically cleared to do this kind of stuff. And the quick version of the way it works is hold the nail so that the tip is about in the middle where the metacarpal that would connect to the middle finger is. That's about where I put the point of the nail for double overhand. I squeeze tight. I like to bring it way up and put my thumbs against my collarbones, up under my chin. If you can notice, my shoulders are shrugged up, so my scapula are elevated and retracted. And the action that I'm going to do is holding onto the nails, and I'm going to think about taking the knuckles of my pinky fingers and ramming them into each other while keeping my thumbs touching my collarbones. And it looks like this, just like that. And the way that I do that, I keep my wrist still and I move my scapula. So that is actually the action. You see all the space that stays between my elbow and my ribs, and I bend that to, I don't know, a little over 45 degrees, something like that. The kiss of death for this kind of bend is, instead of keeping the elbows pointed forward, is if you let the elbows drop down toward the ribs. Unless it's a very easy piece of steel and you're quite strong, that's not going to bend. The leverage doesn't make sense. And it feels really awkward and difficult for a lot of folks to stay in this position and exert that force, but it's what Marty Gallagher calls, we'll take the hard start for the easy finish. Once I've got this started in this position, then it's really easy to finish it off from there. I will open my hands up, or open one hand up and do what I call a Kung Fu salute, and drive those together. Now I'm well past 90 degrees on my bend. Here I can open both hands, interlace the fingers. Now when I interlace the fingers, I want to make sure that I'm connecting between this knuckle and this knuckle with those fingers. So what I mean by that is I don't want my fingers to be there. I want them to be really, really deep. And then from here I do the same sort of thing, but I'm thinking of pushing my palms together this time. And you see you get quite a bit more bend out of it that way. And now we're down to, oh, it's probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches in between. To finish it off, for what I would do for a show bend, is I would hold it like this. The head of the nail is right here, and it sort of splits that middle finger. And I take that middle finger and I put it against the center point in my palm. Not middle finger, ring finger, I'm sorry. And then I crush grip like a gripper and push against his hand at the same time. And it hurts sometimes, but it's bending steel. It ain't really natural. So most folks will consider that finished. If I'm feeling especially chipper about it, I will take and let me put my high-tech I will take this nail and wrap it again in the wrap, but I'm wrapping the entire thing in one wrap here. And if you're gonna I don't recommend anybody do this. In fact, I recommend that you don't do this. You mess yourself up bad doing this if you're not ready for it. I am using the same hand that I hit a coconut with to do what I'm about to do, so this hand is very conditioned to this. So there's the head of the nail, and there's the point of the nail. I want the point up, so I'm holding in the U part of the bend. Let me see if I got one here. So what the nail inside here looks like is this. So I'm holding the angle, and the point is on top, and we're wrapped up and inside there. And so I'm going to set it on top of my concrete blocks here where I do my coconut training. I put this hand on the block and pinch in to hold that. That is giving me a vice type effect to keep the nail from moving. And then I know that the point's right there. I'm going to take that part of my hand that I hit the coconut with, and I'm just going to whack the hell out of it 2 or 3 times, maybe a few more than that. And hopefully what emerges is a nail that's bent way, way down. Sometimes I'll get a little overzealous and hit them really hard, and those ends will wind up touching each other. So that's the overview of how I do overview of overhand bending. I didn't mean to say that way, but I did. So if you have any questions, throw them into the comments, and we will talk about overhand bending a little bit more. If not, I am going to call it a day, and then tomorrow and the next day, or tomorrow definitely, and possibly the next day, we'll talk about the other 2 styles of bending, underhand and reverse. So who has questions for me right now? As I'm waiting for the questions, I'm going to bend one more of these, but I'm going to do it in real time. So here's my wraps, the same ones I was using a moment ago. I'm going to grab that and roll it down. I'm going to grab the other end, and you see that I turned it the opposite direction, so now I've got both wraps going the same way. I'm going to bring it up. And the reason that I take the wraps off to do the hammer fist and smack it down is because if I leave the wraps on, the wraps actually get in the way of the bend once you get to a certain distance of closed. Chris says, should you start with spiral 60 penny nails or does it not matter? That is a good question, and it's completely dependent upon who is doing the bending and how strong they are to begin with. A strong guy with a good pain tolerance and some solid hands, some conditioned hands, could probably start with a spiral nail. I say a strong guy. A strong woman could do it too, or any other person. So that's a spiral 60 penny nail is what Chris is talking about. This is what's called a shiny 60 penny. You can see they're roughly the same size, but this is galvanized and has that spiral look to it. This is smooth and shiny. These are way easier. So, I will frequently use these for warm-ups or for braking, working them back and forth. I'm going to wrap this one up while I'm talking here. So who else we got as a question? Mark says, where is the head and point of the nail positioned in your hands? The way that I do it, which way am I going here? I'm trying to do 2 things at once. The way that I do it is I wrap it. I almost always wrap the point first, and then I'll wrap the head. And the point always, in overhand bending, winds up in my right hand. The head winds up in my left hand. That's just how I do it, how I practiced it consistently. And I'm a fan of doing things exactly the same way every time, so that if I am on a gig and paying attention to what I'm talking about, paying attention to what the crowd's doing, any of that kind of stuff, then I don't have to think about it. What I'm doing right now is working this back and forth. Sean says to always do wraps touching. No, I really don't think about it that much. If I'm doing something that's really, really tough, I might go out to the ends and get a little better leverage that way, or double wrap or something. But not always. It just happened to be what I did today. I'm a fan of wraps touching. I think it's a very pure way to do things. So, see there, I took a 60 penny spiral and just worked it back and forth until it broke. That's really good training for conditioning the hands and for endurance for bending. The way that I did the leg part is once I bend it to about 90-ish. There's one that's been, so that one's bent. This is actually one that I was working on underhand bending. We'll talk about that on another day. Is imagine that it has the wraps on it, and I've just hit it there, and that's about as far as it'll go. I take it and I turn it so that the point is down, and I put the point on my thigh, right here where this big quad tendon is. There's a nice hard spot, but it's kind of sensitive. That's what we're looking for. And there I wedge my belly in between my hands and deviate my wrists like this at the same time. And I work it back out until it's as close to straight as I can get. Just go back and forth a few times like that and it'll break. Yeah, so what was the other question that I had? Where's the point? I always do wraps touching. No, I don't, so I think I've answered that. Mark says, awesome content, thanks. Good, I'm glad you like it. There's a whole lot more to be said about it. I just wanted to give a quick overview of bending this week. Sean says, biggest bend to date. How often do I typically work bends? Biggest bend ever? I did a 5/16 hex overhand, but I only bent it to about 90 degrees. It was at 7 inches. Biggest 6 and 6.5 inch is putting solid kinks in 5/16. Do I keep the nail in the center of my hands or more toward the index and thumb? For overhand, it's center of the hand slightly toward index and thumb. So wrapped up, it would be about right there. You can see it's just kind of, if you look at that metacarpal that comes up to the middle finger, it's sort of in between those two. Generally, I start a little more in the middle of that bone, but I think it probably slides to the outside. Sean, biggest bend to date, and how often do I typically work bends? You know, it's very much a listen to my body kind of situation. I've been working mostly on underhand bending, which I feel like doing one right now, so I'll do it and briefly talk about it, but tomorrow I'll talk more in depth about it. Sometimes I'll take something that's relatively easy, like these 60 pennies, and do some high volume days, you know, like 20 or 30 nails in one day, and then take a few days off. Most of the time, though, I will do a few sets of singles, because they're nails, and maybe 5 or 6 at the most, and do that 4 or 5 days a week. So I alternate kind of between those two things. I'm very much a fan of the biofeedback approach that Adam Glass taught me. And so if I come out and I'll test range of motion, and if it's a good day to bend, I'll bend, and if it's not, I'll do something else. So here's an underhand bend. I'm just feeling good right now. So and the best bend that I've got on underhand is just consistently mauling these 60s. And I honestly haven't tried anything more difficult than these 60 penny nails underhand. I just was having some trouble with this wrist last year and realized that I was greatly deficient in power this way compared to this way, so I started working on underhand to balance things out a little bit more. We'll talk more about underhand tomorrow for sure. Any other questions for me? Give it a couple more seconds here. Say I'll break one more maybe. Yeah. Sorry, I just found a tick crawling up my leg. That's what you get living in the country right there. All right. Any questions for me? All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. See what I did there? That's a pun. Wrap it up. I said we're going to wrap it up while I'm wrapping a nail. Yeah, puns. Not really a pun guy. So, yep, we got nothing else, and I'm just going to sign off for the day, and we'll come back tomorrow, and we'll talk about either reverse or overhand, whichever one I feel like talking about tomorrow. Y'all have an awesome day.